Hi again. In this video, I'm going to be talking about how I made a sound that I mentioned in my previous video and other videos, but I haven't talked about concisely and comprehensively yet in a single video, at least. The engine power noise. There was actually supposed to be a video with entirely new sound design in it before this one, but I'm still editing that and putting the sounds together for it and have some other time commitments. So I figured this would be one I'd move up in the schedule, and it still happens to be a pretty cool showcase of my sound design talents and creative process, as it actually shows off a dimension that I haven't really discussed yet of entirely synthesized sound. No live audio involved. Being a sound for my own project, this is one that I really got to helm the creative brief for. The vision for the project is to have the player exploring an abandoned research facility of sorts. And at an early point in the game, they would solve a puzzle to turn the main power back on, or the emergency power back on, at least. And as far as my sound goal for that goes, my aim was to create something that sounded like machinery, really a heavy electric power source. It should be deep in tone and a bit aggressive, but not necessarily sound immediately dangerous, because I don't want to convey to the player that the object's going to hurt them, at least not in that state. It's just on. It's not like going out of control or anything. So, how did I approach making the sound? I started this project by recording the sounds around me, being a central air system and a refrigerator. I ultimately was unhappy with my result, largely because I started out trying to record the sound of the refrigerator and I couldn't get close enough to the sound source that I wanted. The actual sound source of the refrigerator hum. So, ultimately, I decided I would approach it with sound synthesis. The foundation of this sound really being a signal generation with some additional harmonic generation. So this is the Reaper session that I made the sound in. If you look around here, you can see the original sound, the live audio that I experimented with and ultimately decided not to use, and some snippets from it just as I experimented. Being that it wasn't used at all, what ended up happening, we want to look at on track 2, our FX signal chain. At the root of it is where the sound starts with the EMO generator. This is just a basic signal generator, generates sine waves, white noise, or pink noise. I have it set here to generate a 81 hertz sine wave, and that's really the root of the sound. Moving on to the pitch downshifter, which is next in the signal chain. And as soon as I say that, you might be asking me, why use a pitch downshifter instead of just lowering the frequency at which I'm generating the root signal? Reason being, with the pitch shifter, I found I was getting a lot more sonic information while maintaining the clarity of the low end. Whenever you do it with the root signal, whenever, say I put this down to like 34 hertz, because that's where the pitch shifter kind of takes the territory I have it kind of taking it into. If I put the generator at 34 hertz and just did that, you just get the pure tone. You don't get the low end rumble that you get from the pitch shifter. And the pitch shifter thus helped add a lot more sonic information that I really liked. It gave it this ebb and flow that I like so much. Made it sound more like a machine rather than a fundamental just sine wave, which I don't want it to sound like a fundamental sine wave. I want it to sound like an object, like something within my world. Next up is wave shaping distortion. This I didn't go too crazy with, as I just wanted to give a bit more bite in the sound, but in more depth, my real goal was to generate some harmonic information from what I had. Around the time I had been using Pro Tools and started to understand the sonic physics of why Pro Tools actually puts dirt plugins into a category called harmonic rather than dirt or distortion. The quick and dirty of that being dirt effects by nature actually help generate harmonic information. Depending on how the waveform is crushed, you can generate more tones in the harmonic series. So being that I wanted to create more sonic information for myself to manipulate on top of that fundamental signal, adding a distortion effect thus gave me a bit more to work with and helped me get that bite and aggression that I was looking for. Last in here is the EQ that I used to shape the final sound. You can see I did end up nerfing a lot of sub bass and just like the bass range. I might end up adding some of that back in with a few months of retrospective and having not actually worked on this sound for a while, but I do very much stand by my original decisions on this EQ shaping. It gets a lot of that low end under control while giving me the bite that I was looking for a little bit more present. It really helps it sound like some sort of electric machine. And I think it really accomplished what I set out to do with the sound. So I implemented that into my project using Wise. It took a little bit of time. Long story short, generating the sound banks from Wise doesn't work as documented, at least in Unity integration. It has to be generated from Unity, at least on this version. Maybe an update would solve that issue. But I implemented it with Wise, and you'll be able to hear it's actually spatially mapped, which is pretty nice. As I approach it, it'll get louder. But there is an improvement that I would like to work on. And you might be able to hear it right around now. That is the sound of the sample looping. I have it fading over itself in order to achieve the loop. Which works. It's not necessarily a bad sound. But it was an unexpected result, definitely. And the only reason it's remained unsolved up to now is I don't have the time to learn and experiment like I want to. I was going to experiment with sample exact looping, which I believe is a feature in Wise. It's been a couple months since I've actually gotten to use it. So unfortunately, the lack of time to learn and experiment is really the only thing getting in the way of me implementing that a little bit more like I want to. I feel like the sound works great and accomplishes pretty much exactly what I wanted, and I'm quite happy with that. It might change a little bit with some revision. It says I made it 4 months ago. Looking at it again, maybe I want more bass. Maybe I want a little bit more aggression to it. But I quite like how this sound turned out. With that, until next time.